Welcome to the weekend edition of National Focus. I'm Pearl Fontaine. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, humanitarian groups in St. Joseph recognized a draft school health and nutrition policy is in the works, and communities empowered to address climate change. Stay with us for the details of these and more when National Focus returns.
You're watching GIS.
Welcome back. A national school health and nutrition policy is being developed through collaboration with the Ministry of Health, the Caribbean Food and Nutrition Institute, and the Ministry of Education and Human Resource Development. Discussion on that draft policy was held at a one-day workshop on Wednesday. Chief Education Officer Stevenson Hyacinth briefed the attendees on the aim of the meeting, which he described as twofold.
So this exercise is of great importance to us, and it should help us to promote healthy eating and healthy activities at our schools. And if we look at it from that perspective, healthy eating and healthy activities, we would recognize the twofold nature of this venture here, where we need to ensure that our students are given the proper meals that will in fact build their capacity to learn, to concentrate, and to go through the entire days without one being hungry or lack of a proper meal.
Hyacinth further discussed the objectives of the school health and nutrition policy.
This policy is one that is going to revolutionize the whole teaching and learning process at our schools. Why? It must be incorporated in the curriculum. And in every subject area that we teach, the aspect of healthy eating and the whole aspect of physical activities must be incorporated. It's going to influence the way we look at children and the sort of work that we need to do with our students at schools. It's going to influence the way we teach as teachers. And we ourselves have to model such behavior. If we want students to emulate us, as they do, very much so, we have to be agents of our own teaching. It's also going to influence the curriculum in specific ways, that we're not going to make it a discrete subject, but rather a more integrated subject in that we build it into all the various subject areas, language, social studies, science, as the case may be.
The Chief Education Officer noted that the policy will also address physical activity and make sports education mandatory. He also made special mention of how the policy would affect vendors at schools.
These are persons who, on a day-to-day basis, visit our schools and sell different things to our students. And the question is, what do they sell to them? Are they nutritious? And we will have to put in place the necessary policies to ensure that they themselves keep in line with the whole policy framework, the processes that we will develop within the ministry, that they keep in line with these things.
Anthelia James is Health Promotion Coordinator in the Ministry of Health. She referred to the policy development move as one to be applauded. She explained 3 reasons why schools are being targeted for this reform.
The learning of health-related attitudes and behaviors begin at an early age. 2, children and childhood and adolescence is a time when young people acquire lifetime habits and behaviors. If you think of smoking, it's developed early in life during that time, adolescence. Also, the school reaches a large proportion of young persons, their caregivers, and the school, the teachers, and the community at large. So this is really a setting where a lot of interaction can be involved. Now, if we implement a culturally sensitive and well-planned and coordinated nutrition policy at school, it should focus not only on promoting consumption of nutritious food, but also the development of other behaviors which promote health. For example, physical activity, nutrition education, environment, creating the supportive environments and so on, which will delay the onset of chronic non-communicable diseases, for example, type 2 diabetes, which is facilitated by obesity. So if the policy works, then our obesity level should reduce, and we would expect later onset or none at all of type 2 diabetes among children.
The School Health and Nutrition Policy Analyst with the Caribbean Food and Nutrition Institute, Beverly Lawrence, detailed how the policy is being developed.
The process began here when we collaborated with the Ministry of Health and Education in doing an evaluation of the school feeding program. That was the start of the process here. And this evaluation was done, a report prepared, and we had a national consultation last year where a number of persons came together. I suppose that some of you were there involved in that as well. The report was reviewed, critically reviewed, and participants came up with a number of suggestions that they would wish to see incorporated in a more in-depth evaluation of the school feeding program in particular. But they were also asked to make some suggestions for what they would like to see included in a policy. And many of these suggestions were taken on board, and as we move to the next phase now of developing the draft policy, they have been taken on board, and you will see some of them incorporated in the document that we will have for discussion today.
Participants of the workshop were nurses from various health districts, principals, and teachers. In more news, government and DOWASCO officials earlier this week visited the West Coast Water Supply Project. GIS's Jonna Hector was on tour with the officials and files this report.
A team comprising DOWASCO officials, government representatives, and financial experts working with the National Authorizing Officer went on a tour of water projects along the West Coast on Wednesday morning. The tour officially began about 4 kilometers inside the community of Coolibistry, where 16 Dominicans were engaged in the ongoing West Coast Water Supply Project. The team was first taken to the initial site of the Coolibistry water intake that would help feed the $31 million West Coast water supply system. In Portsmouth, the delegation headed along a road surfaced and then extended by DOWASCO, leading to the first river crossing. Consultant representative Tony Burnett-Biscombe explained to the team how the Picard intake fits into the entire West Coast water supply project.
We'll have an 8-inch pipe connecting down here somewhere to this pipeline, and this pipeline connects to the 20 miles of the pipeline on the West Coast Road, the high pressure line to Capuchin. At the intake site will be the treatment plants, so the treated water will be at a high gravity feed level to take the pressure all the way to Capuchin and south over Morne Espinal. So we're going to have the water treatment and a storage tank. There's no storage tank here as a buffer, but we'll have a 45,000 gallon tank there, and they're going in the lot 3. The next contract would be for a bigger tank down in Portsmouth storage of the treated water. So it's looking good. This project's meant to run till September next year.
He detailed the major obstacle affecting work at the Picard intake.
We've had tremendous rain on Monday, so we know they're having trouble inside there because we've hit this clay area with these huge boulders, and it is hard to operate inside there. We're hauling in 2 layers, maybe 2 feet of tarish to try and stabilize the road. Now, if you look closely, all the way inside this valley, like Coolibistry, but not so dramatic, are boulders. The whole landscape is boulders. The former landowners were only growing tree crops in there. Nutmeg we found, vanilla, a lot of vanilla, and there was another one, cocoa. So we're not really into the intake site until February.
The tour of the West Coast Water Supply Project concluded at this spot in Capuchin. DOWASCO Chief Engineer Magnus Williams explained that all pipes that will supply water to West Coast residents between Salisbury and Capuchin lead to this covered trench. This trench is the northern extent of pipe laying works for Lot 2 and where the new line would be linked to the existing supply line to the Capuchin storage tank. Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Water Resource Management, Honorable Ivor Stevenson, seems satisfied by the demonstration of government's effort to provide drinkable water to the Dominican public.
I must say that today we had a very extensive visit of some of the water projects that the government continues to invest in this country, especially the West Coast Water Project, which is in itself a very important project in that section of the country, stretching from Salisbury as far as Capuchin. We are seeing a significant investment in these areas in terms of improving the supply lines to these areas, the distribution lines, and also the building of new intakes. So the government is investing quite a lot of money into these areas, and we hope that the people of these areas will benefit significantly.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Water Resource Management, Davis Later, told the nation that a project of this magnitude will prove very beneficial to West Coast residents.
This project is going to be of tremendous benefit to the people on the West Coast. As we know, the West Coast is one of the areas, well, that is very much poised for development. It's a very heavy tourism area with Ross University, also part of the population of the northern community. So there is need for a very reliable water supply in that area. In recent times too, we've seen quite a number of Dominicans returning and establishing, building, their new homes in areas on the north, as well as in many other areas in Dominica, and therefore that has put added pressure on the system. Thus the need for us to be doing what we are currently doing in terms of upgrading the various systems, water systems over the island. As I said in the beginning, the government has certainly demonstrated a commitment to doing that. For the past 2 years, we've spent in excess of 50 million, and that is quite an investment by any stretch for a population of just about 70,000 persons on water and the water sector.
Mr. Later further stated that the West Coast Water Supply Project is only one venture in a wider plan for social and economic reform for the people of Dominica. Lot 1 of the West Coast Water Supply Project involves the construction of 2 intakes, one on the Coolibishti River and the other on the Picard River. That is expected to be completed by October 2013. Lot 2 involves the laying of the main distribution line from Capuchin to Salisbury. General Manager of DOWASCO, Bernard Etinoff, gave an official update on the progress of the entire project.
Lot 2 of the West Coast Supply Project is the running of pipelines from Capuchin all the way to Salisbury. That began, I believe, in October of 2011, and it's basically completed at this stage. We can say at the end of November that project, that lot of the project was completed. It was contracted to Zozim Enterprises out of Martinique at a cost of just over $10 million.
Can you tell us how satisfied we are?
Well, so far we are satisfied. It was a challenging project, having to go through some of the communities. The contractor himself faced some challenges in accessing and receiving pipes and fittings that were ordered, and that created a little bit of delay. We can say there was probably about 2 to 3 months delay on that particular lot of the project. But generally we are satisfied now that the project is complete. There is one little section in the Colliu area that still needs to be addressed. The contractor is discussing that with the Ministry of Public Works, Energy and Ports, and hopefully that should be completed soon. The road condition from, say, the Cambridge Junction to Capuchin is of some concern to the residents, but we are discussing that again with the contractor and with the Ministry of Public Works and the Ministry of Lands and Housing and Water Resource Management. Hopefully that too will be addressed very, very soon.
The next phase of the West Coast Water Supply Project involves the construction of 9 storage tanks along the West Coast. That phase, which is expected to cost about $9 million to be financed by the government of Dominica, reflects the continuation of the quest to supply the entire nation with reliable drinking water.
Thank you, Jana, for that report. In more news, representatives of government and non-governmental organizations met on Thursday and Friday in a seminar setting to brainstorm on what the country can do to better adapt to climate change. The two-day seminar also equipped representatives of civil society with skills in project writing. This formed part of the formal launch of Dominica's participation in the Small Island Developing States Community-Based Adaptation Project. Director of the Environmental Coordinating Unit, Lloyd Pascal, in addressing the start of the seminar, highlighted approaches being taken locally to address issues of climate change.
Adapting to climate change would mean that we would have to find better ways for us to manage our coastal areas, because that is where we have found out that most of the damage coming out of climate change comes. That is, you have sea level rise, you have sea surges, you have hurricanes, and then a lot of our beaches get eroded. A lot of our roads are the infrastructures that we have on the coast, because the way that the island is, most of the interior is mountain and trees and water, and all the communities, villages, towns and so on are on the coast. And so damage to the coastal area as a result of climate change is something that we must pay attention to.
Pascal also noted that the involvement of all community-based organizations is imperative if climate change issues are to be adequately addressed.
This activity here is what non-governmental organizations, community-based organizations, groups, organizations, village councils, youth organizations, women organizations, farmers organizations have to do, to work hand in hand with what government is doing to ensure that we do, because there are some, we can't prevent hurricanes from coming. It is probably already too late for us to look at science of how to stop a storm or a hurricane. What we can do, though, is to ensure that we prepare ourselves in such a way that we minimize loss of life, we minimize loss of property in terms of damage, and we preserve ourselves so that we can continue to live.
The government of Dominica is a member of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and has been adhering to a number of international obligations as it relates to climate change. The head of the Environmental Coordinating Unit says this week's seminar was designed to empower vulnerable communities to address climate change adaptation.
We are doing the obligations, what we are committed to under the convention. And one of those things is to ensure that we do public awareness, but we prepare our country, we prepare our people to join the world effort to combat climate change. And we are very pleased to note that we have done some of the things that we have done as a member of that important international body is to do our initial national communication, which is a report of how Dominica is implementing the convention to send to the headquarters. We've done a second phase, phase 2 of that initial national communication. We have done our second national communication.
The seminar on addressing climate change was organized by the government of Dominica in collaboration with the GEF Small Grants Program, the United Nations Development Program, and the Australian government. These organizations will empower local communities to access grants and technical support available through the GEF Small Grants Program to reduce their vulnerabilities and to increase their adaptive capacity to manage the additional risk presented by climate change. Program Manager of the Environment, Energy and Climate Change Office at the UNDP, Ricky Wilson, disclosed that funds allocated to Dominica will be targeted at coastal communities.
I've been informed that this first phase of the CBA will target a series of coastal villages and communities because they have been identified because they have seen the impacts of intense rains causing landslides. They've witnessed and experienced hurricanes, flooding, and also the impacts on food security. UNDP as an agency is always keen to see coordinated action among development partners in the countries of this region. And we look forward to the outputs of this activity.
Minister for the Environment, Honourable Dr. Kenneth Darrow, has fully endorsed the SIDS CBA initiative. The minister expressed gratitude to the UNDP and the Jeff Small Grants Program in coming forward to assist Dominica in its fight against climate change.
I would like to recognize in a very special way the efforts of agencies such as the Jeff Small Grants Program for continuing to partner with the local authorities and community-based organizations in projects that touch the lives of the everyday man and woman in visible and tangible ways. And I want to applaud Jeff for this. And whilst multilateral negotiations on critical issues such as climate change and sustainable development continue to be an international political fiasco, institutions such as yours continue to demonstrate in very pragmatic ways how it can be done. And again, I applaud you. Yeah.
Dominica's Environment Minister is hoping that the international community will take a page from the book of these organizations and come forward in assisting small island developing states to address the impacts of climate change. The minister challenged community groups to take advantage of the SIDS CBA initiative.
I would like to challenge other individuals, communities, and groups to take advantage of these programs that are available, to come on board and to develop projects and initiatives in their respective communities to ensure the continued sustainable development of our beautiful country, Dominica. Because we acknowledge that the government cannot do everything on its own, and each and every one of us must be seized with the idea that we were blessed with a land rich in natural resources, and each and every one of us must play our part in its sustainable development plans.
Dominica's Environment Minister is hoping that the international community will take a page from the book of these organizations and come forward in assisting small island developing states to address the impacts of climate change. The minister challenged community groups to take advantage of the SIDS CBA initiative. The Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, which is responsible for coordinating the region's response to climate change, is assisting Dominica in putting to work its adaptation options with regard to managing climate change. And finally, the government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela has issued a statement on the recovery of President Hugo Chavez. The release indicates that President Chavez is making progress and favorable recovery following a complex and delicate surgery in Cuba earlier this week. According to the release, this recovery process, nevertheless, will require a prudential time as a consequence of the complexity of the operation performed, and complications occurred during the operation due to bleeding that required corrective measures to control it. The statement also reveals that additional treatments will be required to aid in President Chavez's full recovery. The Bolivarian government says it wishes to convey a message of hope to well wishers. We here at the Government Information Service also wish President Chavez a speedy recovery. And that's the English segment of the news. Let's now join McPherson St. Luce for the Creole highlights.
Allô tout le monde, bienvenue à cette nouvelle en créole. Non, moi, c'est McPherson St. Luce. Premièrement, le département environ qui travaille pour la qui a gouverné le département environ Dominique. Parole cela sorti le chef département cela, M. Anthony Scotland. Plusieurs officiers joignent semaine cela pour discuter formulation police cela.
Pour garder toute bagaille qui ça fait monde malade à dire environnement à Dominique. Nous ka garder glou là, nous ka garder à manger, nous ka garder bagaille comme moustique what c'est quel device ça. Nous ka garder comment on ka travailler, comment on ka tenir corps. Vous comprenez? So, tout c'est bité ça là, ça fait mon malade si yo pas pour casser pour manger pour manager environnement et ben koyo et ben programme ça c'est ka garder comment nous ça fait Dominique ni on bête on meilleur environnement on meilleure place pour mon weti nous ka garder loi là whether ces lois là nous pour mettre ces lois là nous pour ça gagner ça développer ces lois ça la pli Pourquoi nous là on manger là ou regarder terre, ou regarder glue, bagage ka polluter là. So nous regarder tout ce que c'est ça. Nous regarder comment nous ça éduquer monde nous-mêmes, nous qui travailler ici. Nous les tout monde ici ni en degree. Nous les chefs là ni en master's degree. Nous regarder comment nous élever éducation monde qui travaille à environnement. So c'est nous regarder comment nous ça éduquer monde à présent. On whole education programme qui pour tout le monde qui tout level pour primary, secondary et tertiary school. L'école.
En autre nouvelle, travail projet State House qui a bâti en ville Ozo, qui a venu au bout de suite. Travail ça là qui commence 18 mois qui passent, qui a vu maison bâtie qui est bien moderne, Horde Shanghai Construction, China. Projet ça là qui a une l'occasion maison pour président, l'occasion administrative, département élection et puis l'occasion pour parc voiture. Ça qu'a expecté pour un l'année gouvernement par mai l'année prochaine. Manager projet là, M. Samiye, fait parole qui travaille qu'à prendre place à présent à Simiwai et puis on est dans le bagage. Il y a un autre aspect projet là, c'est réhabilitation vieille maison là, qui est fini, qui servi pour l'occasion où la grande conférence régionale et puis internationale qui sa chaîne. Premier ministre Honorable Roosevelt Skirt, qui a fait parole qui facilite ça là, qui avance image Dominique pour un pays indépendant. Projet ça là qui coûtait 27 millions de dollars, qui a financé et puis l'argent Grand Horde People's Republic of China. En d'autres nouvelles, un projet pour réhabiliter chimie en Méo, qui prend place à présent. Membre parlement Honorable Kelva Daru, visiter le projet là, semaine là.
Chimie là était en mauvaise condition. Moi, membre du parlement premier, moi te dit ces monde là, moi pour faire chimie ça là avec tourisme style là ouvert. Ou avoir un bel chimie derrière moi, chimie ça là et enhancer community mirror là. C'est jeune monde, contracteur là, c'est sorti mirror qui fait travail ça là. Je dis merci pour travail ça là. Je dis merci pour Premier ministre Skerrit et puis ministre Public Works Blackmore. Puis je dis je fais travail ça là en chimie mirror. Yo dit mais oui, yo assisté moi et yo fait ça. Et je dis merci pour yo. Et chimie ça là et ka benefit tourism product là en hot mirror. Plus les touristes viennent là, yo ça marche sans soulier en hot chimie ça là, puis c'est un bel chimie. Et c'est monde qui ka western dans mirror. Yo ka dit merci pour chimie ça là. Plus yo pas quoi travail ça là fait en hot mirror. Et yo ka dit merci pour moi, merci pour les parti gouvernement, merci pour Premier ministre Skerrit qui assiste moi pour faire chimie ça là pour ces monde hot mirror.
Et puis finalement, l'ambassade de l'Amérique fait donation livre qui a signifié aspect l'Amérique pour bibliothèque Rousseau. Présentation là prend place pendant une petite cérémonie en l'occasion bibliothèque jeudi. Donation ça là qui coûtait $10 000 l'Amérique, qui a avancé littérature, ça c'est fait livre l'Amérique, qui déjà a formé par livre qui en bibliothèque Rousseau. Officier embassy l'Amérique Michael Carver fait parole qui donation ça là c'est une manière pour promouvoir livre l'Amérique en Dominique. Officier bibliothèque Roseau Davina Jones accepte donation là assez comme bibliothèque Roseau. Jones aussi dit un grand merci à l'Amérique pour donation à eux. Messieurs, mesdames, ça c'est tout pour nouvelle créole pour à présent. Non moins, c'est McPherson St. Luce. Qu'à souhaiter tout le monde une bonne saison Noël. Au revoir.
Thank you, McPherson. Time now for Flashback with Jonna Hector.
Welcome to this week's edition of Flashback. In the headlines this week, a contract was signed on Monday morning to begin work on the drilling of 2 full-size geothermal wells in the Roseau Valley area between the Iceland Drilling Company and the government of Dominica. That work will cost $18.1 million. 1 production well will be drilled in Loda and a re-injection well is planned for Lily Valley, Trafalgar. Also this week, the Ministry of Agriculture announced that it is putting into effect an integrated pest management system to control the presence of the citrus greening disease. The Discover Dominica Authority announced this week that it will be sponsoring the Windward Islands 2020 cricket team. That announcement was made by head of the DDA, Colin Piper, who explained that this strategic move will help to market the country's brand. The Caribbean 2020 tournament will be hosted in Trinidad and Tobago from January 6th to 12th and in St. Lucia from January 15th to 20th. And government is currently investing $2 million EC in the rehabilitation of feeder roads in communities across the country. Work has already started in the St. Joseph Car-Home area. A further $15 million will be made available to service the country's farm access roads. Those are the headline stories which made the news this week. It's back to you, Pearl.
Thank you, Jonna. Coming up is the tip of the day.
Together we build, together we strive. We see it all on your Government Information Service, Channel 7. This is the Government Information Service, bringing you all that you need to know about all that's happening in your country's development. GIS, you and your channel.
In today's tip, we'll tell you how you can practice perseverance. Perseverance is believing that every obstacle, no matter how big or small, can be defeated. Determination is a key ingredient to accomplishing our goals and dreams. Focus is extremely important when developing persistence. The more we can focus ourselves on where we are trying to go, the easier it will be for us to get there. One of the best ways to stay focused is to constantly remind yourself of your goals and direction. And that's National Focus. As usual, we invite your suggestions or comments. Please feel free to drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm, or you can visit our website at news.gov.dm. You can also look us up on our GIS Dominica pages on both YouTube and Facebook. On behalf of the entire news production team, I'm Pearl Fontaine. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend.